Don't you just love games that end in a tie? Or don't you really hate a good, exciting playoff game? If so, this is definitely the talk for you. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about soccer, specifically European soccer. It's something that I've been watching pretty much weekly for the last 10 plus years, and I think it's a really important thing to talk about. According to the World Atlas, over 3.5 billion people tune into soccer, and that makes it the most globally watched sport in the world. It connects so many people, and I think that it's going to be a really interesting topic because it's different from a lot of American sports in the way that it's set up. There's going to be a lot of cool things to cover. So today we're going to be talking about the difference between national teams and club teams, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into those club teams and talk about their domestic leagues that they participate in within each of their countries, and then how those countries' teams are able to commingle and play in an international tournament that we're going to talk about. So let's begin. The difference between a national team and a club team is that any good player should really be playing for both. The course of a club season, which is typically, I always define it as the school year. It always starts in August and ends in June. A player will play for their club throughout that entire time, and their performance at that level will determine whether or not they can get called up for the national team. National team games typically take place over the summer in the forms of big tournaments like the World Cup. The best way to explain this is with an example. So Spain, which according to Statista is the European nation with the most players playing around the world professionally, with 8,560 players, all of those people play around the world for various clubs, and that 8,000 players has to get distilled down to a list of 26 that get called up for tournaments like the World Cup or this year's Euro that take place over the summer. So you want to participate for your club and you want to play as well as you can so that you can have the honor of representing your country against other nations. So since players spend most of their time at their club, let's move on and talk a little bit about club participation in domestic leagues within the boundaries of each country. So within each country, there are a top division of teams, usually consisting of about 20 different teams, club teams. These 20 teams will play each other twice each over the course of a 38 game season, one versus 19 others. And what really irks a lot of American sports fans is the fact that this is decided by a point system instead of going to playoffs. And so within a game, the winner of the game will get 3 points, the loser of the game will get 0, and if they tie, they both get 1 point. So that system taken out over 38 games is a long, standing test to show who can really keep a level of quality high over a full 9-month season. It's a really good test. And I think another great way to explain it is with an example. Again, in Spain, my favorite team is Barcelona. Barcelona plays against the other 19 teams, and they really hope that they can rake up as many 3-point games as possible and get that top spot. What really makes this whole system cool is that even if they don't get the top spot, there's something to fight for at every level of the table. So if they don't get that first place and get that championship trophy, they need to get in the top 4 spots. If you're second, third, or fourth, you still get the privilege of playing in the next season's edition of what's called the Champions League. That's the kind of premier international European tournament that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And so they really want to get into that. But if they're having a really bad season and they're hanging out at the bottom, 18, 19, 20, 20th place, they really want to avoid getting in those last 3 spots, because if they land there, they're going to get relegated, meaning that they'll get bumped down to the lower division of Spanish soccer, which for the next season, if you're in a lower division, you don't have the opportunity of qualifying for the Champions League. There's less money involved, there's less glory involved, there's a lot less to play for, so you really want to solidify yourself in that top 20 teams within your country. And so whenever these countries get to play against each other is a tournament called the Champions League. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Moving on, you need to qualify for this Champions League to be among the best. Back to our example in Spain, according to the official La Liga website, the 4 teams who qualified this year were Real Madrid, Barcelona, Girona, and Atletico Madrid. So they have the opportunity of participating in this international competition among the best of the best. So while everything I've been explaining through examples has been in Spain, this exact same system is going on in Italy, in France, in Germany, in England, and all of the major and minor European countries that get to participate. And so this is kind of where your American sports fans who need the excitement of not need the excitement, but would love to see the excitement of a playoff style game, this is where you need to watch. It's a tournament, meaning that someone has to advance to the next round to where there's only 2 teams left. And the way that happens over the course of the season is very exciting. The main thing that I'd like to point out is that it happens adjacent to the domestic season that I've laid out. So while those teams have to play 38 games against other teams in their country, if you qualify for this, you get the added burden of playing in the Champions League at the same time. And so domestic games typically happen on weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays. It's been great. I always get to wake up and just spend my weekend watching those. However, if they play in the Champions League, those games are always in the middle of the week. So they add an extra game to their weekly schedule, which really adds to the burden. It's very difficult to juggle both responsibilities. And to show how difficult that is, I'm going to give you an example of a team. Real Madrid, I hate to say it, they're my team's biggest rival. They're, over the course of all of history, the best team in the Champions League with the most titles ever, and the same thing in Spain. They've had the most Spanish League titles ever. Out of the 36 times they won the Spanish League, they've only been able to win the Champions League in the same season 4 times. And so it's very difficult to juggle both responsibilities and succeed at the highest level in both competitions. So all that being said, I'd like to thank you all so much for coming. Today we talked about the difference between national teams and club teams. We then dove a little bit deeper into those club teams and talked about the domestic leagues and then their participation in the Champions League, that premier tournament that really just brings it all together to, really increase the excitement. So after what we learned today, I really hope that y'all be able to willing and come sit down and watch some games tie with me. I really appreciate y'all's time. Thank y'all so much.